I'm going to quickly give you a list of questions, and I want you to think about the people in this room coming from all over the world, and how people might answer those questions slightly or extremely differently than you. All right? I will pause from time to time to give you some thoughts, because I've thought a lot about these things. And then after, we might have a quick chat about it in your groups as well. So, who can be your friend? You know, is it normal for a boy and a girl to be just friends? Is it normal for a 15-year-old to be friends with an 80-year-old? Is it normal for a CEO to be friends with a janitor? How much, if you are friends, how much time should you spend together to keep the friendship strong? How close can you stand to someone before they start getting a little bit, oh wow, right there. She got, I thought I would have to get closer, but no, actually right there. And she's like, okay, too close. Nope, too much. Portuguese, right? Portuguese have, I thought there was more, like, this was like personal space, but no, it's right here. Okay, noted, understood, okay? How long can you make direct eye contact with someone before they start getting a little bit wow, less than half a second. That's, yeah. This one, direct eye contact. Every culture in the world is triggered by direct eye contact when it's too long. It triggers a fight or flight reaction, because if someone stares directly into your eyes unblinking for too long, there it was, yeah? Your brain is telling you, danger, danger, do something about this. However, the length of time to trigger that reaction is very, very different in different cultures. In some cultures, it's almost nothing, okay? A quarter of a second, right? In American culture, it's half to 1 second, which means if you're showing someone that you're paying attention, we kind of do that dance, you know, like eye contact, look around, eye contact, look around. Because we want to show we're paying attention, but not to threaten them, you know. From India, right? Yeah. Eye contact in India, my God, 3 to 5 seconds. Direct, unblinking, expressionless. Right? And me, if I walk into an Indian restaurant in India, or a bus, I'm the most interesting thing there. Everyone was staring at me immediately. No expression, no blinking. 3 to 5 seconds. Just. Which means when I'm in India, my brain is telling me everyone wants to murder me. They don't. I know that. The other part of the second part of my brain knows that, but the reaction is danger. This entire room is staring at me, unblinking, expressionless. In my culture, that means something. In the Indian culture, that means something a little bit different. But if you're not aware of that difference and not double thinking your instinctive reaction, it can escalate very quickly, right? All right. Should you wait for someone to stop talking before you start talking? Spanish. Also very important. In some cultures, it is very polite that if you want to say something, you wait for the other person to stop, to close their mouth, and then you start talking. In other cultures, if you do that, you will never speak. And that works perfectly well in those two cultures. Yeah. There is absolutely, it's called turn taking in conversation. And there are cultures where people are wired to, French is actually a good example of that. People are wired to know where someone is going with their thought and to jump on the end of their thought before they finish it. So all the beginning and ends of the sentences will overlap. Now me, it means I don't say anything, or I try and feel like I'm interrupting them and feel like I'm rude or they're rude or just everyone is rude. Right? Now, that works perfectly well if you keep people in their own culture. Right? Everyone understands the rules, no problems. You put those cultures together, one side is going to think that those people are so rude, and the other side is going to think, wow, those Finnish people are so quiet and they're just not talkative or engaged at all. They don't want to share anything with me. It's weird. They're trying to get a chance, but they're waiting for you to stop talking. What is food? What isn't food? And when should you eat it? There are many places in the world where what is food? And people from that culture, they look at something on the plate and start salivating. It looks so delicious, right? They have a physical reaction. But if I even look at it, I will actually vomit. It has happened to me, all right? It is a physical reaction from salivating to being sick. Not controllable, but let's think about that. We are all biologically the same, all right? If it's food for those humans, it can be food for me. But my brain is telling me that is disgusting. Get everything out of your stomach now, just to be safe. A physical, uncontrollable reaction for something that is 100% cultural. Right? Even when you eat it, in Japan, everyone has hot rice for breakfast. Right? Maybe a few European cultures as well. For an American, that is unbelievably weird. Right? I got used to it, of course, but it was actually physically difficult to get used to that because my body did not want to eat hot rice in the morning. That is not breakfast for me. Just like, many of you might enjoy a good steak or a hamburger, but if you wake up first thing in the morning and someone puts like a steaming hamburger under your nose, like, oh God, like what are you doing? It's not the right time to eat that. This is culturally programmed and it can make you physically sick. Just the time that you eat something. All right, what is polite? What is rude? What is your responsibility in life? To your community or your family. What is family? What is on time? Okay, pause. You're all going to experience this. Even in Europe, what is an appropriate amount of being late is very different, even in the European context, okay? And this is a good example of how just because I say something is cultural doesn't mean that you have to accept it or that it's not a problem, okay? It's not all relative. These cause huge problems. But if you are in a small group working on a project and every time one of you arrives 5 minutes early, German, and most of you, most of you arrive on time, and one of you always arrives 5 minutes late, French, and maybe 15 minutes, someone else 15 minutes late, okay? I'm sorry to generalize. Let me pause. I will be making jokes and generalizing about cultures, okay? I fully understand that within that culture there is a broad spectrum of different people, huge exceptions, but within cultures and patterns, within different cultures, there are definitely patterns, okay? And I have experienced those, and I think it's not useful to deny those patterns, okay? No one is here from a sub-Saharan African country, right? No, okay. I've lived in Côte d'Ivoire and Tanzania. It is perfectly okay to be over a half an hour late to a meeting. No excuse, like no apology, no sense that there is something wrong here. You show up when you can show up, right? Now, even after 6 months of living there, even when that happens to me, my brain is telling me, what a rude person who is showing me no respect, right? Actually, my brain is screaming that. That's not how they see it. And if an American did that, they know the rules that we both live by. If an American was doing that, that is a rude person who is not showing me any respect, right? If you're in a small group and someone is always showing up 15 minutes late, your brain is going to tell you, this is a rude person who doesn't respect us. What we have to keep in mind is now, we are all the foreigner. We are the outsiders. And we don't know what rules other people are living under and what is normal for them. So, that's just to say that when there is friction, when there is misunderstanding, when there are problems, we have to kind of put on our culture filter and think, maybe this is a cultural issue that they're not being rude or disrespectful, but it absolutely still causes a problem. Because if everyone is ready to start working on the project and 15, 20 minutes later someone shows up and says, okay, so like what have we done so far? Like where are we? Yes, this is a problem and we need to talk about it. Not with the assumption that that is a rude person we have to change, but just to find a solution, to talk about it. Now, you may talk about it and realize it's not cultural, that person is just a jerk. There are jerks everywhere. There are some people who have certain cultural rules or understand how to show respect and have no interest in showing you respect. That could absolutely be the case. But now that you are surrounded by people from all over the world, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt that this is a cultural misunderstanding, talk about it, and find a solution, okay? All right, what might be a good use of time? What is happiness? Why are you here? What is truth? That's the correct response. Yeah. I'm not saying there is no truth. Honestly, I don't know. But your interpretation of what is true in a universal sense is determined by your culture to a large extent. Right? And as a side note, if you're going abroad for the first time, on an exchange program, it's probably not enough time to really make you question your definition of truth and happiness and all of that. But if you start living as a foreigner, another thing that happens is you realize that your simple answers to these big questions were given to you by one specific culture. And when you're living surrounded by other cultures, that there starts to be questions and like cracks in the foundation of who you are and why you're living here and what is life and all of that. You may be starting to understand why this was a much braver decision than you think to leave your culture where everyone more or less agrees on what is normal behavior, normal reaction to these questions, and go into a different culture where everyone has a slightly or extremely different reaction to these questions and millions of others.